fish can live underwater, then so can I.
DC, a place where hundreds of mediocre movies are constantly churned out. It always amazes me how DC, one with the oldest and most iconic superheroes, managed to waste 15 years, but this isn't rare in Hollywood, is it? At this point, I'd rather watch the reviews than the actual movie. Ah, yes, movies certainly have the delightfully dreadful talent of debuting at the most inopportune moments in history, sputtering into failure as they might have thrived with a pinch more luck in their timing. Take, for instance, the first Aquaman movie, a masterpiece of mistiming if there ever was one. It arrived right smack in the middle of superhero fever, reaping over $1 billion despite being as memorable as a goldfish with short-term memory loss. Honestly, recounting its plot is harder than finding Atlantis. How the times they are a-changin'. Behold Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, the latest episode of DC's thrilling financial misadventures on the silver screen. It's the grand finale of DC's slow-motion cinematic train wreck, marking the end of an era, well, more like a tragic yawn, really. A film so doomed, even the village psychic could have predicted its nosedive. Featuring one of Hollywood's least loved leading ladies, dropped into the dumpster fire of a year that gave us more superhero duds than a clearance sale at Capes R Us. This sorry spectacle is the failed mic drop of a franchise desperately gasping for a reboot. In summary, it's sinking faster than a lead balloon, and for reasons so foreseeable, they should include them in the disclaimer. Warning, may cause box office obliteration, side effects may vary but include sudden loss of studio execs' hair. Oh, brace yourselves, because I'm about to shock the universe by saying that Aquaman 2 doesn't quite reach the atrocious depths you'd expect. I know, right? It's not quite a masterpiece, but at least it didn't drive me to question the sanity of everyone involved in its creation. Compared to the landfill of cinematic disasters we've endured lately, that's quite an achievement. The riveting sequel takes us on a thrilling journey several years after the first movie, where Aquaman reluctantly sits on his Atlantean throne, exasperated by the bureaucratic nightmare and the sudden emergence of a council that conveniently missed the franchise's debut. But fear not, because amidst the real headaches, he morphs into a tender father figure, reveling in domestic bliss while the underwire political circus unfolds. Who needs coherent plot progression when you can have an impromptu council obstructing every move? Well, lo and behold, trouble rears its head in the form of Black Manta, because what's a superhero storyline without a good old-fashioned vendetta, right? Seeking vengeance for his papa's demise in the previous flick, he ventures to the frosty wonderland of Antarctica to stumble upon a convenient ancient weapon, because where else would it be? But hold on to your seahorses, folks, because that's not the only thing lurking in the icy depths. Suddenly, and incredibly coincidentally, he's possessed by an angry spirit with a score to settle with Atlantis, giving him an upgrade to super-duper villain status. Cue the dramatic entrance, causing chaos, collateral damage, and sidelining Mira, because who doesn't love a good damsel in distress trope? Oh, the horror, the tragedy, cue the tiny violin. But wait, there's more. This is just the appetizer to a grand plan involving worldwide oceanic destruction and releasing a battalion of frozen demons. With the fate of the seas hanging in the balance, Aquaman must begrudgingly seek help from a not-so-trustworthy source, because obviously, that's the only logical move in a situation like this. This film is like a lukewarm tap water. Because nothing says riveting dining experience like a glass of water that makes you question whether you're hydrated or slowly being punished. But hey, at least it's not going to jump out of the glass and scream while at you, right? It's like the most non-threatening thing since a fluffy bunny wearing a Hug Me t-shirt. Unless you count the vegans, because they will probably take one look at it and start a protest. But hey, who needs their dietary advice anyway? It's not like they've got a point about, Earth and stuff. And speaking of unlikely sources of wisdom, let's talk about taking likability advice from Rachel Ziegler, because that's a solid plan for success, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to follow the footsteps of someone who is famous for, well, being famous? So here's the deep insight. Aquaman 2's biggest flaw is basically its entire existence. It's like a film that's so afraid of falling on its face that it ends up just shuffling around in circles, hoping nobody notices. It's the cinematic equivalent of comfort food that's trying so hard to be comforting that it forgets to have any flavor. We've got our hero facing a threat so big it's practically asking for its own spin-off movie, and of course, the solution is teaming up with a blast from the past. Yup, that's some groundbreaking storytelling. So, our main hero begins as the classic I don't want the responsibility type, but surprise, surprise, he grows up and embraces his inner leader. Then we've got these two dudes learning to get along and work together. Cue the heartfelt music and the slow-mo high fives. It's like a buddy comedy, but with less buddy and more solemn nods of mutual respect. Because nothing says heartwarming tale like the slow, inevitable evolution of grudging respect, am I right? And guess what? They even managed to set aside their differences for the greater good. I mean, what a shocker, right? You'd think with the stakes so high, they'd have thrown caution to the wind and gone all out with some mind-bending, crazy plot twists. But nope, let's just stick to the old tried and true playbook, because who needs innovation in a sequel? The first Aquaman played it safe, but hey, let's not rest on our laurels, folks. Let's play it safe again, because that's the stuff blockbusters are made of, right? And here's the kicker, we've got this whole fatherhood, family, and forgiveness thing going on. It's like they dipped into the themes for feel-good movies handbook and just went with the classics. I mean, it's not exactly reinventing the wheel, but hey, at least it's not trying to force-feed us some highbrow, overly philosophical musings on the nature of existence, right? Finally, a movie that shows dads in a positive light. What a rare treat in a mainstream Hollywood flick. Clearly, this one didn't get the memo from Disney about the whole absentee father trope. Thank goodness for some originality, am I right? But wait, there's more. Brace yourselves for the hottest of hot topic issues, environmentalism and global warming. Because what's a superhero movie without a touch of eco-consciousness, right? And eat this, the villains are all about that fossil fuel bonfire to warm up the oceans and unleash an evil demon army. I mean, talk about subtle messaging, right? It's like they plucked the most on-the-nose plot device from the bargain bin of environmental cautionary tales. But hey, don't worry, this recycled, pun intended, idea somehow manages to be less irritating than the other preachy bits. As for the cast, they're, mostly adequate. I mean, Patrick Wilson is a standout, even if this isn't exactly his Oscar-winning moment. And hey, at least he gets to kick back and have a bit of fun, right? As for Jason Momoa, well, he's just doing his Jason Momoa thing, because why mess with a good, shirtless thing, am I right? The burning question on everyone's mind, just how much Amber Heard does this movie cram in? Well, surprise, surprise, probably more than you bargained for, but thankfully less than you might have feared. You see, it's like a thrilling game of hide and seek with her character. She makes a grand exit around the 30-minute mark, vanishes into the filmic ether, and then reappears like a cinematic mirage in the finale, but with about as much dialogue as a particularly shy background extra. It's like they took a pair of hefty scissors and snipped her role down to the bare minimum without having to shout, "Oops, we made a whole new movie." And while I'm not sure anyone's throwing the party for her return, the silver lining is that her presence is more elusive than a unicorn in a foggy forest. Aquaman 2 has me doing the critical cha-cha because while it doesn't exactly make my eyes bleed, I'm struggling to come up with a catchy sales pitch for this lukewarm offering. It's the kind of movie that takes you on a journey to absolutely nowhere, offering up the same old without even a sprinkle of glitter or a surprise party for your brain. I mean, it's like watching a goldfish swim in circles. Sure, it's technically moving, but is anyone really invested in where it's headed? And let's not forget the profound lack of stakes and gravitas, because who needs a little adrenaline rush or emotional investment in their cinematic experience, right? Well, in summation, it's a rivetingly mediocre superhero film. I mean, if you've exhausted all other forms of entertainment and find yourself in a deep, existential void over the festive season, go ahead, give it a whirl. It's a surefire way to while away a couple of hours, assuming you don't mind the slow descent into cinematic amnesia. But hey, it's just another drop in the ocean of forgettable superhero flicks that have flooded our screens this year. With all the enthusiasm this film is generating, it's bound to gracefully plummet beneath the waves without so much as a polite wave goodbye. And that's a wrap for today, folks. You can skedaddle now. Cheers.